You know, I don't know who to be more disappointed in. Jared Goff or the entire Bears organization.
Welcome back to the James and James Show. I'm Josiah.
And I'm Will.
And we're going to be going over Week 10 recap, just kind of going over the games that really stuck out to us and briefly cover the games that were not as good, because this week was kind of bad, if I'm going to be completely honest with a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, there were not a lot of great games. There were a few pretty good ones, but there was a lot that kind of either just were like not very interesting or just, I don't know, uneventful, blowout. You want to get it kicked off with the Sunday night game itself, which was quite the eventful one.
Quite literally.
Yeah, Texans blowing a 23-7 lead, scoring 0 points in the second half. Ugly game for a lot of reasons. Jared Goff, 5 interceptions. There was, 7 total turnovers?
Yes.
But, I mean, kicking it off early, though, my first set of flowers does go to a Detroit Lion. Jared, I'm kidding.
No, I was going to say.
It's actually going. It could have gone to a lot of people. The defense, the O-line that did not let up any sacks against the Houston defense. But I decided to go with Jake Bates with 2 super crucial clutch field goals, both of 50 yards or more in the fourth quarter, one being as time expires. Both of them missing the goalpost by about that much combined.
Yeah,
so,
it was basically grazing the goalpost twice.
Yeah, he made him about as close as he could. So quite a game, real rough from Jared Goff, but Lions eventually got their offense going, and you know what, they snuck out with a win.
I will say overall the game was a little sloppy on both sides of the ball. Obviously for like the first 3 quarters, it took a while for anybody to get really moving on offense, and obviously it was the Lions that were moving on offense and not the Texans, because as you stated before, that the Texans have been a little bit slow on offense and they haven't been doing a whole lot on that front of the ball. So I guess it was kind of expected. So I shouldn't be as surprised, but also I don't know. I thought they'd be more interesting if it's been like a turnover fest and then it turned into somehow the Lions won.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a very defensive game. The Lions' defense played spectacular. Carlton Davis, I think, was kind of the highlight of that. But you can't slack on like what Brian Branch did or the D-line. Like, it was just a good game for that defense, and the offense wasn't horrible either. I think some of the play calling was a little questionable, but I think at the end of the day, you looked at Jared Goff, and it was just costly turnovers. But either way, Texans blow a pretty big lead. It is the only lead that D'Amico Ryans has blown of 10 or more since being at the Texans. So
that's very true.
It was kind of a disappointing game for the Texans, but you know what? It was fun to watch. I enjoyed it. So
yeah. All right, and then I think one other game I kind of want to go over. I didn't get to see it. I want to hear from you specifically the Bengals and Ravens game on Thursday night, especially that failed 2-point conversion with 3 missed face masks from one picture.
I didn't see that. I saw a lot of complaining about refs from that game. I mean that game is basically about as I expected. Which is no defense. It's the divisional game where there's no defense. It's just back and forth offense. Both showing like what the offenses can do. It's not that much different from what we saw the last time they played. Just saw. I mean, it was almost went to overtime again. Just the
Yes,
Bengals deciding,
again,
opting
yeah.
not to, and game coming down to a 2-point conversion try that didn't quite work. Again, I didn't see the picture. I've just heard a lot of people complain about it. One thing I will take note of is my second set of flowers going to Jamar Chase. I was back and forth between him and Joe Burrow, but Jamar Chase, 11 receptions, 264 yards, 3 touchdowns. Burrow just had like one of the most spectacular wide receiver performances of the year, probably.
55 points in fantasy.
So I think his only competition as far as a single game performance this year was himself the last time these two teams played. So he's just he had himself a really good game. The offense in general, especially Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. That was kind of pretty much all of it. Again, not a lot of defense. Ravens still played pretty well. Lamar played well. Derrick Henry held to like 60, I think it was 64 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Ravens still a really good team. They squeak one out, sweep the Bengals.
Yeah.
Got maybe a little lucky, but
Just a little. Yeah, I mean, a little disappointing from the Bengals front, but this season has been nothing but disappointments on that front, so I kind of feel bad for them, honestly. But that's just kind of how everything kind of crumbles, really, because great offense, terrible defense. That's what'll kill you.
yeah, I mean, it's just they've never been able to really put a complete game together except for the 1 week against the Raiders. So we'll see if they can clean things up. They have some interesting games coming up. But moving on to another game that came down to the wire, was pretty close, but disappointing. I had the Commanders and Steelers down as obviously the game ended on pretty much a neutral zone infraction, which was just really disappointing to see. I really was rooting for the Commanders. Looking at the stat line, this doesn't really tell the whole tale of the story because Jaden Daniels around 50% completion percentage, which is about his worst all year. But a lot of that reason was because a lot of the receivers were dropping a lot of balls. And there were a lot of mistakes, especially when handling the ball, because there was also a muffed punt that really hurt them. A lot of sloppy play. And again, they kept it close against the Steelers team. Like if they were catching balls, I think they had more, I believe, drops than they did drops this week than drops they had the entirety of the rest of the season.
That's
so
crazy.
A team that's been very clean was kind of sloppy, and it cost them really close. There was also a controversial placement call. Commanders went for it on 4th down late in the game, down a point, and they spotted him, I think, shorter than where he really was, but it's hard to say. I believe it was Ertz that it was too. They spotted him shorter than where he was. He may have still been short, but they really didn't give him a chance. They marked him almost half a yard originally a yard short of where he was originally. Yeah. So wasn't too. That was iffy, but yeah, Commanders just kind of played a little sloppier than they usually do, but still played a good Steelers team close.
Yeah, I mean, all it was just coming down to that Steelers defense and Commanders offense. Honestly, I think even with all those drop passes, I still think the Commanders did better than the Steelers defense. It was just too many advantages not taken, especially with all those drop balls. Steelers offense looked better.
It looks a little bit better, but yeah.
Theoretically, but I'm still not sold on the Steelers right now. Even though they just beat the Commanders, which is a really good team right now.
Mm-hmm.
It was sloppy for them at the beginning. It was a little sloppy for them. So I mean, they cleaned it up and everything, but this is one of those teams where it's like, I don't know if they're really good or if they're just getting really lucky, like the Chiefs are.
Well, we'll have to see going forward. I think the last little bit of interesting news was, did you see who caught the game-winning pass? Pretty much for the Steelers.
Yeah, I believe so. Is it Mike Williams?
It was
Yeah, I
Mike
was going
Williams
to say it was Williams. He
with
also
the
had a
go-ahead.
touchdown.
So, yeah, that was a little fun thing. But we'll move along to, I mean, you just mentioned them, the Broncos and Chiefs game. I think the thing that pisses me off the most, the Broncos played them pretty well, especially their defense. I was a little bummed to not see their offense do anything. I think the thing that pisses me off the most about this game isn't anything that actually happened in this game. I will say that I didn't call the blocked punt or blocked kick at the end of the game, but I will say, and I can call upon my friend upon this. I said as they were going to kick the field goal, I don't have a good feeling about this, and it gets blocked, and I was like, son of a bitch. No, but the thing that does piss me off is the people saying that the game is rigged because the field goal was blocked.
Oh wow, no!
And I'm like,
field goal.
I'm like, how
How
are you
how
gonna
can it
say
be?
it's?
How can you say it's rigged after a blocked field goal?
I don't know. And it's like, yeah, there are people being like, oh, they got through that O line like way too quickly. And I'm like, yeah, they probably did. You know, it's probably just them being better coached or something. I don't know.
They just got the jump on him. That's all it was.
I don't know. It bugs me. But yeah, I don't know if you have much on that game. For me, it was just like how the game ended. It was close. It was interesting, but there was not like a bunch of details. I believe Travis Kelce became the receiver, the chief with the most receiving touchdowns all time.
I believe so as well.
I believe as well.
I'm gonna say the same thing. Disappointing game. Right before a meeting that I was about to have during that block punt, I sat there. I'm like, they're gonna do something stupid here, aren't they? Or like something dumb's gonna happen. So I had the same feeling as you. So maybe it was just a disturbance in the force where everyone was just like, I got a bad feeling about this one. And then it happened. And also I do want to point out there were a few people on the internet who also say that the Broncos defense are like not that good. They kept the Chiefs offense to 16 points. That's it's still pretty good. Even though the Chiefs have been pretty bad on offense this year. They have been slowly picking it up here and there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they've had one bad defensive week, and that was to the Ravens, who are really good offense.
Really good offense.
They put
the
up
Chiefs
points
have
regardless.
not had a good offense, so keeping them to 16 points is still pretty impressive. I do not give the Broncos where credit's due. I should have given them even after the Ravens game. Still a really good unit. It's just they're not quite ready. They're getting there.
I mean, and they're a young team. They're not expected to be phenomenal right now, but it's a lot of promise, and they still have an opportunity to sneak into the playoffs.
They definitely do.
But I'll move along to a game that has my third set of flowers. Although it was not a super interesting game and was kind of lackluster, it did come down to the end, and it was a divisional game. That would be the Saints and Falcons. Game as a whole, yeah, it was whatever. But I did keep looking up to the TV to see one man make some big plays, and that was Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who is getting my third set of flowers. And I will add honorary set of flowers to Darren Rizzi, first game coaching as interim head coach. Good for him. Props to him, especially as against a good division opponent.
Yeah.
In the Falcons, like, props to you. But yeah, MVS, 3 receptions, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I'm like, it's not an incredible stat line, but it's like,
it's pretty good.
2 out of your 3 catches were touchdowns. You went for 109 yards on those 3. I'm like,
All right.
he single-handedly pretty much, like, he scored all of the touchdowns for them.
Yeah, he did.
He was most of their offense, and it came on like 3 plays. So that's just, I thought that was
it just happens.
just interesting.
Yeah. But luckily, when the head coach is fired, the interim usually does really well the first game, and then we'll see what happens afterwards.
Yeah, it's quite the phenomenon. But Also, I mean, I'm not surprised because they just weren't really in a good spot, anyways.
Yeah, no.
But we'll move along because there wasn't really that much. Just wanted to get that third set of flowers out about. The Dolphins Rams game was what? There was an interception and a fumble both ways.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe the Rams scored any touchdowns.
Nope, 15 points. So it's unlikely that they did.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised. The defense has played pretty well in another game. This is kind of similar to the Lions and Texans, except I guess the Dolphins didn't have as big of a lead and didn't blow it. So
That's true.
Small stuff there.
Unfortunate for the Rams.
Buccaneers 49ers.
What was it? They had struggles on kicking that entire day, specifically Moody. Moody wasn't doing super hot. He did kick the go-ahead field goal to win it.
He did. And I believe the issue with the field goals came down basically to the long snapper, right?
It was the long snapper, yeah. And speaking of the long snapper, Deebo Samuel got a hold of him, quite literally. So someone has an ego that we don't talk about enough, but someone needs to check up on him a little bit. I guess overall during the NFL week, it wasn't very eventful, if I'm going to be completely honest. A lot of disappointing games. What was it? When we were going through, I think by the time we got to the Lions game, both of us were just sitting there like nothing. Like it wasn't exciting. It was also just disappointing because all the teams that we thought were going to win didn't win, and the teams that we didn't think were going to win won.
Yeah, it was kind of a funky week, but I mean, looking at some of those not as interesting games. There was the Munich game that was just really sloppy both ways. Giants ended up putting it to overtime just to fumble on the first play and give the Panthers the win on a field goal.
Yeah, I mean, Jones hitting a Panthers player in the helmet with the football, that led to an interception, is pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie.
It's kind of the epitome of the Giants.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, Jaguars keeping a game close against the Vikings when they didn't have Trevor Lawrence in. It was just not. It didn't look pretty for the Vikings there.
No.
Bills kind of cruised against the Colts later in that game. The Bears put up 3 points, so that was real pretty against a Patriots team that made that look really easy. Chargers cruised. Eagles cruised against a Dak-less Cowboys. And then Cardinals also cruised against a healthy Jets team, so I don't really know what's going on with the Jets. They just did not show up to play.
The Cardinals did.
Yeah.
Currently, the Cardinals hold the division lead, 6-4.
They're looking pretty good. Not like again
great,
but they're winning their division and they have some solid competition. So props to them. But we'll move on to some news, I guess, from the week.
I did see that Jerry Jones left halfway through the Eagles game, which is not a good look on him. And also, there was a whole conversation on the internet between CeeDee Lamb and I believe it was Jerry Boy talking about putting at least curtains on those giant windows that are facing west. And Jerry Boy was like, "No, we're not going to do that."
I mean, the stadium's been like that for a while. A lot of people have complained about that. CD is not the first, so I'm not surprised that when it got brought up, it was like, no, because it's like, why would you do it now?
Yeah.
It's people have complained for years, but they haven't done anything. It's kind of an advantage, but there was some weird stuff. Obviously, again, Dak is going to be out for the rest of the season after undergoing surgery. So that's the Cowboys are pretty much donezo. I mean, I'm pretty sure they were donezo anyways, but even more donezo. There was a clip that circulated about Micah Parsons talking about Mike McCarthy saying, what was it? That it was about Mike McCarthy and Zach Martin, really, saying that he felt bad for Zach Martin. He really wanted them to win, but as far as Mike McCarthy goes, he can go anywhere and do whatever he wants. And I think it obviously got blown out a little bit out of proportion, saying that I think people are viewing it as Micah Parsons is like, get him out of there, which, I mean, a lot of people are. I don't think he is necessarily. His point was more so to be the people that have played there for a while. He wants them to win something because they've been there a while, and they've not won anything.
30 years, Jerry boy.
So
30 years. What's it gonna take, huh?
But a few things before I bring up a question I want to ask. But first, talk about the Bears, as we've just mentioned, fired their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron.
He's gone.
Averaged 9 points per game over their 3-game losing streak. 27 points in 3 weeks.
Ew.
Ugly, ugly, ugly. But as we've seen, had some sort of like coach movements, firings, and musings. They're also in that mess. Was also a mention from Brian Flores that he said he would love to be a head coach again somewhere. And I've also seen stuff similar about Cliff Kingsbury, but I think Flores would actually be a very interesting one because I think he wasn't given a fair chance.
He was not given a fair chance, if I'm going to be completely honest. He deserved better.
He does, and I would like to see him get a chance to actually be the head coach somewhere again.
Mm-hmm.
Kingsbury, I just think he's a really good offensive coordinator, and that's about
Yeah,
as
that's
high as
about
he should
it.
go.
Like, he should not be a head coach anymore.
I feel like in the league currently, there's a lot of like good teams and a lot of really bad teams, or at least based off of record.
Yeah.
And I guess my question would be, which sub 500 teams are actual like long shots at making the playoffs, and who is basically already out and just is waiting for it to become official? Because I think there's a few interesting teams that have a chance, and I think there's some that are, obviously out.
I'm going to say in the AFC, unless if it's a miraculous turnaround, Dolphins are probably not going to make the playoffs this year with how late of a start they had. That rest of the division besides the Bills are out. Bengals can make a push, but they got to really turn things around. They have a better chance than the Dolphins, in my opinion, just because they're a game ahead. Let's see here. Broncos could definitely make a push. I mean, they're not sub 500, but they
are 500.
They are 500, so I do believe that they can make it. Colts is a big no, in my opinion. Colts have not impressed me unless they turn something around. Looking at the rest, look at the NFC. Oh, boy. Buccaneers can definitely make some noise if they can, stay as healthy as possible. But that's kind of a long shot. Let's see here. It's kind of hard in the NFC. Not gonna lie, because I can only see what is it? 3 NFC North teams, 2 NFC East teams, Falcons, and then whoever takes the West right now. So that's all 7 right there. I do believe the NFC North can get all 3 of those teams in the playoffs if they really tried.
Yeah, so again, there's a reason why I brought this up is because you're kind of in that in between of like not really making predictions as to who's there yet, or anything like super playoff, but like kind of looking at these teams that are down there who still have a chance, because I think most of them still have a chance. No one is officially eliminated, so everyone technically has a chance. But like, who really has a chance? Like we've mentioned, the Jets are still fighting to get back in,
even though they're 3-7 right now.
And at 3-7, you win out, you're 10-7, which is a very playoff.
It is
available.
A playoff thing. Yeah.
But like me personally, I'm 2 teams in the AFC, which those being. I'm putting the Bengals and the Dolphins in there. The Jets, I'm tempted because they are like all in, but they're inconsistent, and I think one loss and they're done. The Dolphins, they still have a little bit of room to play with. They got Tua back, so a lot of that stuff that's been struggling should be getting better. And their defense has been very good this year. I don't think they'll do anything in the playoffs, but they could sneak into a 7 spot. Bengals, they're just always scary, but like you mentioned, the Colts, no. Jets, Patriots, and below is just no. Jaguars, unfortunately, at 2-8. I mean,
No.
you're pretty much selling already. Looking at the NFC side, I think Bears, if they can fix the offense after firing Shane Waldron, maybe you have a chance to sneak in at 7. And then you also mentioned the Buccaneers, I think, are also a really good option. But and Rams, maybe Seahawks if they can turn things. Like the NFC West is a good division who just hasn't been playing well. But the NFC is very competitive this year. And while there's probably 11 teams that could fight to be in there, I think a lot of it is going to come down to the North. Maybe you sneak, I think, probably North, a second East team like you mentioned, and then it'll come down to, I think that 7 spot's going to come down to either another NFC North or a NFC West team.
Yeah.
I think potentially the Buccaneers, but I think it's a much tighter conference. Whereas you look at like the AFC, it's 7 teams 500 and above, and everyone else is like a real long shot. So
Yeah.
Broncos, pretty much if they can hold their spot, they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
The NFC is just a mess, and a good mess.
A good mess.
Very
Makes it interesting.
It's very interesting. So I just kind of wanted to gauge your interest in that because it's an interesting debate. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean we're
could
not quite there to make predictions of how far certain teams are going to go, but
We're
I
getting
guess chance-wise, there are some teams who can make it, but we'll see if that actually happens, especially with how sloppy some football has been recently, specifically calling out last week.
Mm-hmm.
But
So I guess with that wrapping up kind of that little news debate section, we can go on to power rankings.
so I have a new top 10 team, and it is none other than the Arizona Cardinals.
Interesting.
Cardinals have surprised me, I'm not going to lie. At 6-4, they're looking pretty solid. I mean, I got nothing to complain about them. They've been winning. They won 4 straight. They looked. They're not like the best teams that they've played, but they've played decently against the teams that they have played. There hasn't been like a whole issue when it comes to like coaching or scheming so far. Murray's been consistent. Marvin Harrison Jr. has also been getting some notice and getting some of those targets. James Conner's great. He's a great running back. Does what he needs to do. That's why I have him there. I mean, I'm surprised. I mean, the team that dropped out was the Falcons. I will say.
Yeah.
The Falcons did drop out because of that loss.
Yeah.
But they can get back in if the Cardinals lose this next week.
I will say the Cardinals, they have been surprising. They're like a sneaky good team. I don't actually have them in my top 10 because while they've been winning games and they are like again sneaky good, I don't feel as though they're warranted really a top 10 status yet. I think I don't trust them enough to put them up there.
Which is fair, but I gotta have to give them some love at least 1 week.
Yeah, I mean I did it with the
This
Broncos.
is probably the only week it happened. So
Let's see if they can keep it up. At number 10, I have the Houston Texans. I would consider dropping them out, but like also you played against a good Lions team, and they played well on defense. That offense is what really
killed them.
It made me really want to drop them out, but I
think this
looked
is-
at it as a whole.
This is Stroud's slump year. I think this is the slump year.
Yeah,
So it's gonna happen.
it was a little disappointing, but I have them there. They're kind of just on that cusp of the top 10, and a ugly week plus a good week for someone like a few teams could easily bump them out. So
Oh, definitely.
I have them there.
Number 9. Here's the Texans. Same reasons. Couldn't really drop them out because I didn't know who to replace them with. Falcons also lost, so there was no reason to bump them up. And Cardinals being number 9 didn't make sense either, so that's why I was like, I guess the Texans will stay for right now. If they lose again this next week, then they might be out of the top 5 or top 10 because it's not looking too great
Yeah,
for them.
they're just a little sloppy. Number 9, I have the Vikings coming off of a very close win against a Jaguars team without Trevor Lawrence. It's just really a game that you should win, and obviously you did, but not in a fashion that you really expected. You basically won because they're not really anything with Mac Jones in there. He didn't play well, but Sam Darnold had a rough week. Offense didn't really move the ball, no touchdowns. I think your defense kind of bailed you out. And again, that's against a team that hasn't had a good O-line pretty much all year and was dealing with a backup quarterback. So,
Yep.
just they drop a little bit more because I'm just not impressed. Hopefully they get back up there.
So my number 8 is the Minnesota Vikings. Literally copy paste. 12-7 victory is not something to brag about. No touchdowns on the Vikings side. Disappointing all around. If you can't beat one of the bottom feeder teams this year by more than 2 scores, then I am concerned for you and your well-being.
I mean, I will defend them a little bit in saying that the Jaguars have kept it close against the Eagles and Packers recently,
That's
who are
true.
both good teams. I think a lot of it is just the Jaguars are playing better. The main reason I had them further down is, again, the Jaguars didn't have Trevor, and they didn't
true.
play particularly well. I mean, the defense played better.
Yeah, the defense definitely played better.
It's just yeah, put it together a little bit more. At number 8, I actually have the Philadelphia Eagles, which I know you're probably not going to be the biggest fan of, but they're not playing complete football, yet they're still winning games, and they're still looking pretty good. I mean, they destroyed the Cowboys, admittedly, without Dak Prescott, and Cowboys are not the Cowboys of old, but they still did it with mistakes. And so there are other teams towards the top of this list that also make mistakes but still win games, and they are praised for that. And I think the Eagles deserve some credit for being able to do that as well.
Okay.
So I'm giving them a little bit of it, especially because if they can manage to put it all together, they're going to be a really scary team. But yeah, I have them up there. They've been winning. I mean, they're the head of the division right now, and
That is true.
so I just figured putting them up there was fair.
I mean, that makes sense. I would say that the Eagles are probably like number 11 right now. And then I think if the Cardinals do lose and the Eagles continue to do well, then Eagles are back in the top 10. What are we on now? Number 7?
Mm-hmm.
Number 7, I have the Packers. They were on a bye week. Also, they kind of dropped a bit because things moved. So they exist.
Yeah,
They're there.
that's interesting. I also have the Packers at 7. I switched them pretty much with the Vikings, and I dropped the Vikings an extra spot. But Packers I put over the Vikings because of how the Vikings played. Packers I have no reason to drop them, like you mentioned, on a bye. But a good team. I still think. I mean, maybe I could have put the Eagles over them just because they beat them earlier in the year, but no, I kept the Packers at 7 right now, and we can go on to number 6, I guess, just because bye week.
Yeah. Number 6, Commanders. Tough loss. Still a really good team. Both teams, the Steelers and the Commanders, played their hearts out. Just one unlucky break literally sealed that game. I mean, that's what happens. So,
Yeah, I also have the Commanders at 6. Like you mentioned, just it's a sloppy game, and yet you still only lost by 1, and you were like that close.
they were close.
If you had been playing with as much consistency and as clean as you had all year, I think you have that. Obviously, outcoached a little bit by Mike Tomlin, but I mean, can't be mad about that. He's a really good coach, and you are doing this with a pretty young and very new roster and coaching staff. So, again, being able to do that, a lot of props to them, but I did have to bump them down just a little bit, mostly for the
I
team
did too.
who moved up. So, number 5.
Number 5 is the Bills. They're finally getting some recognition from me. 8-2. Good record.
That's a pretty good record.
Only losses were to the Ravens, and I believe it was
The Texans.
Texans. Yeah, it was the Texans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brain fart.
Yeah. Bills have played pretty well.
They have. Sure, a lot of people would say they have a cakewalk of a schedule, at least for the first half of the season. However, I do think that they're still doing pretty decently, even against the teams that they did lose to. The only exception to the Ravens. The Ravens was just a massacre, honestly. But I think they kind of picked up the slack just a little bit. So yeah, number 5.
I mean, yeah, I get it with the Bills. It's their one concern is consistency. My number 5 is actually the Steelers. I had the Steelers a few spots down, and I moved them up just, I think, into the spot where I had the Commanders, and just moved the Commanders right below them. Obviously, beating the Commanders, looking pretty solid. Again, really good defense. Their offense is playing better. Commanders are a good team this year, which is kind of weird, but the Steelers played a pretty good game, so I'm giving them some props, and I'm keeping them at 5.
I have the Steelers number 4. They also took where the Commanders' spot was, so just interchanging. So I mean, it was just a matter of time before the Steelers got into the top 5 conversation right now. Sure, I don't really trust that roster quite yet, mostly because of, I don't know, something with Russell Wilson still doesn't click with me. Maybe I'm just having a bad taste of what he did at Denver still, or maybe it's just him not being as up to par as he should be. I don't know. Maybe I have too high expectations for him specifically. Steelers overall, that defense is still great. That wide receiver core, not as great as other wide receiver cores, but still really good. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, George Pickens, good when he tries.
Yeah.
So.
And then he fights people for no reason. So.
And then just stops trying. My number 4 is the Bills, so just a little bit of a interchangement there.
Switch.
I like what the Bills are doing. Again, another team that does. They're more so just don't play a complete game, but they're winning while not playing a complete game. With so many teams doing this, it's kind of concerning what the playoffs might look like. I think there's only one team, maybe 2 teams that have been playing like consistent like whole games, and they're coming up. But yeah, Bills, rough game from Allen. He didn't look.
It happens.
As great.
We're getting to that part of the season where things start to really like kick up a notch, and people are starting to figure out other people's schemes. They're trying to figure out rhythms. They're trying to adjust to everybody.
So, yeah, kind of a little bit more vintage Josh Allen, but they still do plenty to win pretty comfortably. So good on them. But I'll let you go on to number 3.
I have the Ravens.
No, me too.
Number 2, Chiefs.
Number
1,
Lions.
Lions. Nothing changed up there. Even though that Goff did throw 5 picks, I think it's just as impressive that the Lions came back from a 23-7 deficit in a half, which is still very impressive. That Texans defense is not a joke. They're pretty good.
They are pretty good.
So,
I think that just speaks to how good that Lions offense can be. Obviously, the overcoming the interceptions and stuff mentioned is tribute to how good that defense can really be. They didn't even have Zadarius Smith yet, so once they actually get him in there, they could be really scary. Lions are a good team. I was considering dropping them from how they played. Again, mostly Jared Goff. I considered, but I kept them above the Chiefs. Chiefs sneaking out with another one, so they're going to remain at 2. I was really battling. And then the Ravens, I mean, I think the Lions and the Ravens have been those two aforementioned teams that have been
At least consistent, yeah.
They've been
Everyone else has been
consistent.
so inconsistent.
So
Like even the Steelers, like they're not that consistent.
yeah,
They're good, but they're not consistent. Same with the Bills, Commanders.
Commanders maybe.
Commanders
I would say
maybe.
maybe the third most consistent
Yeah,
there.
maybe
But
the third most, but definitely the Ravens and Lions are the most consistent.
if this is how these teams play the rest of the year, I think the playoffs are going to come down to those few teams because consistency is the name of the game, and obviously the Chiefs are usually consistent in the playoffs, so that's expected that they fix what they have going on. But right now, those few teams, like those consistent teams, I think have a really good chance just because of how they've been playing, and maybe harkens back a little bit to last year, but I mean Ravens Lions, that'd be a cool Super Bowl.
That would be a cool Super Bowl.
That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, that wraps up our power rankings, I guess. Once again, having Lions and Chiefs at the top.
Yeah, they haven't moved for a while.
Lions were real close. I was real close to bumping them down.
They were close. I'm not gonna lie.
I was real close to putting the Chiefs over them. And then I remember how the Chiefs game went, and then I considered the Ravens. And I was like, no. So
Yeah.
that's power rankings, as well as, literally everything else, as that will wrap up our Week 10 recap. So thank you for joining us. We always love having you, our lovely audience, in attendance. And what a week it was. But we look forward to seeing you guys in our Week 11 preview as the season continues to march on.
And next week we'll be, quote unquote, celebrating our channel's 1-year anniversary. So, can you believe it's almost been a year?
We're almost there.
We're almost there. But yeah.
Yeah. Thank you again for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, whatever. Throw your power rankings in there. But otherwise, we will look forward to seeing you guys in the preview.
See you.
Bye.